Former President Donald Trump showed up in court today in Miami, and he's facing 37 felony charges over his taking classified documents when he was president. Crowds of his supporters lined the streets. There were a handful of anti-Trump supporters there as well. But even before he entered the courthouse, Trump made his plans clear. He told radio host Howie Carr, "I'll just say not guilty." And that's exactly what he did. He has also repeated that he did nothing wrong, and he's pointing to what he regards as a two-tiered system of justice that has repeatedly targeted him, while repeatedly letting his political opponents off the hook, notably. Trump will be speaking at an event with supporters in New Jersey tonight, and I'll of course be giving updates on the story throughout the week. But there's something bigger happening here. In fact, I'd say it's really the big picture. To understand what's happening, you need to understand Trump. One of the more telling statements of what's going through his mind came from Trump spokesperson Alina Habba, who spoke outside the Miami federal courthouse. Trump is apparently feeling defiant. Watch.
Today is not about President Donald J. Trump, who is defiant. It is not about the Republican Party. It is not about the 2024 election. It is about the destruction of the long-standing American principles that have set this country apart for so long.
Now, not only that, but immediately after the arraignment, Trump went to a restaurant in Miami where supporters had gathered, and he said, "I think it's going great." Watch.
I think it's going great. I think it's a rigged deal here. We have a rigged country. We have a country that's corrupt. We have a country that's got no borders. We have a country that's got nothing but problems. We're a nation in decline, and then they do this stuff.
Now, for anyone who's read some of Trump's books, this actually says a lot about where he's at. Why is that? Well, put simply, it suggests that his mentality has not changed one bit. Let me explain. Now, Trump's book, Art of the Deal, that's probably the best known. It used to be regarded as a must-read in business circles. But one of his less remembered books was interesting as well. It's from 2008. It was called Never Give Up: How I Turned My Biggest Challenges into Success. What Trump describes in that is his philosophy when he faces adversity and hardship. And what he outlines is the secret behind his incredibly stubborn nature, which he's generally known for. He describes his mental strategies for being unshaken by troubles, why he is the way he is, and how he turns situations around even when they otherwise seem hopeless. He explained what goes through his mind when he hears the word no. When he started his real estate business, his whole empire back in Manhattan in the 1970s, that was a time when everyone else was warning against it. They said, don't go to New York. The city was going bankrupt, all the way from local policy all the way up to federal policy. It looked like everything was working against New York ever making a comeback. And facing something like this, well, most people would look at the hard facts and start their business somewhere else. But that may be where Trump is different, to an extent, again, that he at first could seem even unreasonable. He writes this: "If I had only considered the facts, which weren't too rosy, there was no way I would have ventured into real estate. But I did. Why? Because when I hear the word no, it becomes a challenge to me." And he explained his deeper philosophy on why that is. He writes, "I believe the so-called impossible is actually very often possible if you're willing to work very hard, and if you realize that problems can become opportunities. New York City was having problems, but maybe I could do something about those problems. That kind of attitude can give you the power to conquer obstacles and succeed in the face of long odds." And Trump starts his book, interestingly, by describing the lowest point in his life. Although maybe he'll update the book once his latest chapter in Miami is said and done. But it goes back to the 1990s when Trump was facing bankruptcy. As he put it, his business was billions and billions of dollars in the hole. He questioned, what do you do when the entire world tells you it's over? And he notes that he had such a massive comeback from that situation that he was listed in the Guinness Book of World Records for the biggest financial turnaround in history. In March of 1991, the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, they declared that Trump was over. They both ran front-page stories on what looked like his total financial ruin. The story went global, and the general narrative everywhere in the world was that Trump was finished. That was the 90s. And Trump wrote this: "That was the lowest moment I had yet encountered in my life." And when his phones went quiet, it gave him some time to think. He reflected on himself, and he realized that he had become complacent. And what did he do? He worked on turning the situation around. He explained, "Giving up was never something that had entered my mind, not for 1 second. And I think that's the reason I confounded my critics. They were trying to skewer me, but it had the opposite effect. It made me want to make a comeback, and in a big way. I knew I could prove them wrong by being stubborn, by being tenacious, and not giving in or giving up. I became a stronger person very quickly during this time." And he writes, "If you're met with some setbacks, refusing to give up is probably your best strategy." And he adds as well, "I'd also already learned that problems are often opportunities in disguise. I began to see my situation, believe it or not, as a great opportunity. I had a big chance to show the press and my critics and my enemies that I was a force to be reckoned with, not a flash in the pan, success with no staying power. That's heady incentive, and that's looking at the situation positively. And then there was a turning point, and that turning point was my attitude." Now, of course, this philosophy is actually not limited to Trump. Many of the greatest men in history actually held generally the same views. Marcus Aurelius, regarded as one of the 5 good emperors of the Roman Empire, wrote this: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The idea is that challenge is an opportunity. The difficulty becomes a springboard towards success if you choose to utilize a situation rather than be crushed by it. The ancient sage Lao Tzu expressed a similar concept in his book, The Tao Te Ching. He explained this: "The best of men is like water." Why is that? Because water is adaptable. When it runs into an obstacle, it immediately finds a way around it. And that was also the same in ancient Rome. Lucan wrote in Pharsalia that Caesar declared an oath to his country to save it from the people who would harm it. And Caesar stopped before crossing the Rubicon, and it was there that he abandoned what he said was desecrated law. He explains as well the philosophy of kings. "Serpents, thirst, burning sand, all are welcomed by the brave. Endurance finds pleasure in hardship. Virtue rejoices when it pays dear for its existence." Now back to Trump. And as if echoing his beliefs going back to the 1970s and the 1990s, he explained when he announced his run for office again in 2024, when he said he was going to do it all over again, that he knew he would be attacked. He was expecting it. He said it. And he declared also how he planned to face it. Watch.
We will be resisted by the combined forces of the establishment, the media, the special interests, the globalists, the Marxist radicals, the woke corporations, the weaponized power of the federal government, the colossal political machines, the tidal wave of dark money, and the most dangerous domestic censorship system ever created by man or woman, the most dangerous system we've ever had. We will be attacked, we will be slandered, we will be persecuted just as I have been. I mean, I have been, but many people in this room have been. But we will not be intimidated. We will persevere. We will stand tall in the storm. We will march forward into the torrent, and we, in the end, will win. Our country will win. We will win.
Now, whether Trump is actually embodying these virtues or not, that's your call. But without a doubt, it's the philosophy that he has repeatedly expressed. It doesn't appear that he plans to give up anytime soon, and it does appear as well that his decision to keep going regardless of everything he's facing is very much helping him with the polls. Folks, stay tuned after the break. We'll be speaking with Representative Andy Ogles about Trump's indictment and how it could impact his campaign.